Deb Tankersley. I'm from the Wikimedia Foundation. Hopefully you all can hear me in the back there. I do tend to talk softly. If you're not hearing me, please do this, something that I know. Anyway, so I'm here to talk about the environmental sustainability impact assessment that we did last year. And so there's a whole lot of data, so I have my notes in front of me, so apologies again if I talk too fast or go through too many things. There's going to be hopefully plenty of time at the end to do questions. So the agenda today, a good thing I'm short because you guys can read this really good. So we're going to go over what the Wikimedia Foundation goals were for this sustainability assessment, review parts of that report itself, talk about possible next steps that we want to do for the future, or again, for the foundation itself, and then have plenty of time for Q&A. So what we're wanting to do with our foundation goals, again, this was based off of the sustainability initiative that was started back in 2016, which then resulted in a board resolution in 2017 to go ahead and make sure that the foundation itself was going ahead and look at things like sustainability, what can we do, where do we stand right now, that type of thing. So these were our goals that we had for last fiscal year as far as our actual programmatic goals. So we wanted to seek to figure out how we can minimize our overall impact on this environment, and this environment is literally everybody, right? We wanted to consider sustainability as an important part of all of our decisions. So basically, when we do new data centers, when we go travel, when we do things like Wikimedia or Wikimedia in another country, another part of the world, like Cape Town, what do we do? How do we do it? How do we make it green? How do we make it sustainable? And then again, using green energy where it's available and financial improvement. And then I've got the links down here as far as our last year's fiscal plan. This was something that we talked about last year during Wikimania, so it's been full circle for this one. I realize you're not going to be able to read this, that's why I also have the link up here for it. But this was something that Erica, she's in the audience right now, presented last year. So this is something that we've been taking seriously, and we wanted to say the kickoff was last year. We started all the stuff that I'm going to talk about today last year, then we're kind of finishing up as far as where we are at this moment. So, sustainability assessment itself. So the foundation itself wasn't able to actually go out and do all this stuff itself. We're just not the experts in figuring out all these things that we want to actually go ahead and do. So we hired in, another consulting group called Strategic Sustainability Consulting Group. And they went through, and their mandate was to research current practices of the foundation, help establish those baselines. So basically, where are you at now? What's your numbers at? And then go ahead and talk to us about advising on a roadmap. So the report focus. So this is something that I want to actually read something out other than what's on the screen here. So this report was simply environmental sustainability. And while we realize that social justice, things such as human rights, diversity, equity, inclusion, financial governance responsibility, privacy, free speech, all these things, these are huge key elements of sustainability. They're not part of this report. Also, we only focused on the Wikimedia Foundation, not the wider movement itself. But within that focus, we did focus on things like travel, and that's including large conferences like this Wikimedia that we do every year, the hackathon that we also have every year, Wikimedia Summit, all sorts of art travel that we do as a foundation, and that's scholarships. So if anyone's here on a scholarship, we help pay for that. We do the volunteers, we do the staff itself, the supplies that we need, so the printing and all that good stuff, right? So that was all contained in this. So this is the environmental impact. This is what the numbers are right now. So I'll go ahead and move out of the way a little bit. So the WMF, again, the foundation itself, and all the travel and everything else that we do as far as data centers and such like that, this is what we created last year. 2.1 kilotons of CO2 equivalent. So most of that is electricity. So and electricity covers all sorts of things, right? The biggest electricity hog, of course, that we have is servers, right? And we'll go into that a little bit later on. But those servers are super important because otherwise we wouldn't have Wikipedia, we wouldn't have any of their projects, we wouldn't have all sorts of things. And then the air travel is the second one, so but it still is only 0.25% of what of our covered CO2 equivalent. And the hotel stays, getting their food, all that good stuff. That was the third highest one. There's other ones in there. It doesn't add up to 100%, but it's close. So So what does all this mean? And according to the report that you guys will see soon, it's actually very low comparable to regular entities that our vendor used. So as a foundation, again, we were actually pretty low compared to everybody else in our sector that the researchers looked at. So does anyone have any questions about what is a CO2 footprint? I've got a blurb I can hear, but I think you guys are already well aware of what that means. All right, so let's go into actually some of the things that we can actually do. One of them I want to talk about here first is the strengths. So the foundation is behind this all the way, right? Senior leadership is completely on board. This is something that we want to go ahead and do. We also have a very high enthusiasm across the foundation. There's lots of people, several of them here in the auditorium today, that are very concerned about this. They want to be very active in it, and they are active in it. They want to continue. They talk to volunteers. They talk to other communities. They talk to other wikis. This is what they do. This is what they love to do. One of the other things they have as well is that the office right now in San Francisco is a LEED certified platinum green building. So again, when we moved into that office a few years ago, it was very specifically looked at as, can we be as green as possible? Even in San Francisco, yes we can, and we tried our best. So this is a very green office, green energy, all that good stuff. And then one of the other things that I have on here, which is really huge, telecommuting is core. So about, I'm just going to rough numbers here. We have about 350 people in the foundation. I believe over 2/3 are all remote. So there's only about 100 or so people that are actually in the San Francisco office. One of the other things I also want to talk about here is just real quick is over this last year, our accounting office went ahead and actually started converting everything over to PDFs. So all electronic, rather than saying, I need that piece of paper, I need that receipt that you did that business travel on or something like that. They're now all paperless, and they're now using, they told us in the report then, 60-70% less paper, and also 95% less paper used now in all those credit card transactions. So we've made a really big difference there. One of the things I also wanted to talk about here is that we are making all best efforts to ensure that our data centers are using sustainable energy and using as simple technology as we can possibly use, so that we don't have to go through so many hops and bounces and everything else all over the place, right? It's literally within our data centers that we do this work. We want to make sure that it's clean as possible. And again, if we don't have these data centers, especially the ones that we have right now all over the world, this means that we're not able to serve up Wikipedia, and we're not able to serve up anything like that. The reason why we also use our own servers is because of our privacy concerns, privacy and non-commercialization. So that's why we, the foundation, own these servers, right? Not own, lease them, whatever. But that's why we're doing it. That's why we're not going through Amazon Web Services. We're not going through all sorts of other things, right? We actually house our own because we want our stuff to be private, to our users to be private, to not be commercial. So weaknesses, we do have a few of them. So the first one here is the personal initiatives for maintaining the best practices. This is something that individuals literally have been doing for years now within the foundation, and then talking about it to other people. But the problem is right now with our weakness, and this is something again in the report, is that we don't have a, the term that they use is codified, but basically we don't have a foundation-wide way of saying, hey everyone, y'all should do this type of thing here. It'll be more sustainable, it'll be more green. We don't really have a way of that, but there's lots of people that want to do that. And so pockets of people here, their type of thing, are doing their best part, right? But we just don't have yet a foundation-wide way to do it. The other one that we have, of course, is significant electricity use. That is, again, servers. It's not the office building, it's not the lights, it's not anything like that. And then again, travel, right? Travel is essential. So we wouldn't all be here today, right, if we didn't want to come here. So that includes travel. There's a lot of people that live in Sweden, a lot of people that live in Europe. One way or another, you had to travel to get here to this building. So what can we do? Opportunities. We want to go ahead and set clear expectations, roles, and responsibilities. And this is something within the foundation, again. We need people that really want to do this. We need to clear expectations of, you're going to do this thing, you're going to do that other thing, and then follow on through that. Make the goals, make the roadmap. One of the things we can do about the data centers, we've done some investigating so far. The investigation is not done yet as far as how can we then not use the data centers that we're using now. Is there better ways to do it? Can we move it? Can we just make it greener within their spaces that we are? That investigation is still ongoing. I don't have the results in it. That's also not in this report. But one of the things we can do is using carbon offsets to help with that. And then again, engage community stakeholders, right? We want to make sure that everyone's involved in this as well. So you guys also need to keep us on track, right? If there's something that's going on that, you know, we're not doing fast enough, we're not good enough, let us know, right? It's okay. We'll listen. We may not be able to immediately react because we are the foundation, right? But it's something that we need to know about, and I'll talk more about that also. So, next steps. Some of this I went ahead and kind of talked about a little bit already. Near term. So these are things that Catherine and I talked to the board earlier this week, or this last week, about one of the things, there's several of the things that we can actually start doing now. And part of that is getting this policy statement out. So we need to actually say, what are we doing, why are we doing it, let's go ahead and get the thing done. Build out this framework for it, right? So it's things like green operations, making sure our IT practices are as green as possible, making sure that we have greener events, and again, greener events, meaning more virtual. So things like what we're doing right now, taping this, virtual streaming, that type of thing. Additional ideas that we can also do is green event options. So I think this particular event has been fantastic. I don't know if you guys read the back of your little thingy, but these are actually plantable. So it's really pretty cool, right? The plastic can be recycled, the lanyards can be recycled. There's using the glass cups rather than all the paper ones. So we've done really well at this event. This is amazing. So just a matter of we need to do more, right? What are those things that we can do? So the next big events, what can we do for that? One of the things we want to do is optimize community and telecommuting practices. So there's a lot of people that are in the office, and again, this is a big focus of this particular report because it's the foundation specific. There's a lot of people that were actually commuting into the office. Much more the rest of the people in the foundation actually don't commute. They either work from their couch, like I do, or they go to the local coffee shop. You know, they ride the bike, they go 5 blocks down to the coffee shop or whatever, and they meet up with a bunch of other foundation people, and that's how they do their work, right? So those to me are more better commuting, telecommuting practices, right? Rather than literally say you live in, I'm gonna get the distances wrong, San Jose, and I have to go all the way up to San Francisco. That's a freaking travel, right? Why are you doing this? Do you need to do that? Do you need to be spending your car by yourself traveling 25 miles just to get to work? All right, so went through a lot. I've got a lot of other data we want to go ahead and talk about, but one of the things I wanted to make sure we have time for is to make sure that we can actually talk about this, right? So we talked earlier about all the climate change that you guys have going on and the efforts that we have around that. What do you have questions for us? So we can talk about now for sure, obviously. There's also an email called answers@wikimedia.org, and there's also a meta page here under sustainability. So you guys are free to put anything on there. So what questions do you have for me? No questions, really?
Do you expect the Wikimedia movement's environmental footprint to increase or decrease in the future as we seem to be expanding as a movement, but also getting more efficient at the same time?
Right. I would assume we're going to expand, but again, everything I talked about today is the foundation itself. But if we can actually get a really good program and then be able to give recommendations to the rest of the movement, I think that would be good. But yeah, I think as we expand, it seems that, and because again, new users, new readers, new editors, more hackathons, more editathons, that type of thing, I would assume, my personal opinion, that it would be expanding.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So first, regarding travel, do you have any kind of policy, or do you know right now? I understand that it's hard to substitute all the air travel across continents with the trains, for example. But suppose that some of the work is being done in the same continent, but people still fly. Like, for example, I suppose that many of the participants here have flown in, even though they are from European countries. Have you thought some about that?
So again, that would be personal thoughts. It's not covered in the report, which is the basis of today's session. I know train travel is obviously better than flying, so if it can be done, I know that I talked to several people in the foundation. It's like, wouldn't it be cool if we could actually just take a ship here from the United States? You know, get to the East Coast, take a ship on over, and then train travel in. It would take weeks, and then again, you're on a ship, and it's like, okay, can I actually do my job? Is there Wi-Fi? Is there, you know, a way to actually do my job while I'm out on the ship for, say, a week? And that's where the difficulty comes in, because not everyone can actually take vacation time just simply to get to a work event because we want to be greener. Do you understand? It's something that we want to do. There's better ways to do it for sure. I don't know what all those answers are yet. I think it was, I don't remember the first. We go this way.
This is just a reply. If we're really serious, it shouldn't be vacation time, but working time,
Correct.
traveling.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So,
I was just wondering, since travel was one of the main sources, obviously, of carbon emissions caused by this, and as we continue to expand, do you think that there are some, what are sort of the ways that we possibly mitigate, for example, if Wikimedia, we are all here, as you said, we all travel to get here some way, a lot of us by air travel. As we continue to expand, there's going to be more and more participants. Do you think there's a way to offset this somehow? Would it be possible to maybe record all the sessions and make it a little bit cheaper to available live, so that those who don't want to travel could still partake somehow? Or what do you think the possible mitigation options?
right, so that's something that we definitely want to go ahead and do more of. So this particular event, there is live streaming, I believe, of several of the sessions. The rest of them are all being videotaped, and so we will be making them available. The videotape sessions obviously won't happen immediately as far as getting up on there, but that's something that we want to do more of. So one of the other conferences that I help work on is the technical conference, and that's happening in Atlanta in November of this year. And that's something that we look at it. Do we have the budget to actually live stream this? Because we want it to get to a wider audience. The unfortunate part is at the time we don't have the budget to do that. So that is something though that is definitely an option that we want to do. So then in my eyes, it's like we should have every conference that has something to say, okay, here's the video of the main speakers, here's the things that happened, here's the slide decks, here's everything. It's all available online. Anyone can actually look at it. That would be my goal. But things like Wikimedia, part of it is literally getting people together face to face, right? And that's something that the foundation does all the time. Most of us, again, are remote, and we only see each other face to face maybe once or twice a year. So those meetings, even though it does seem a little bit excessive, I know it's 26%, it's so necessary for the work that we do, especially the work we do with the movement and our community.
Yeah, I have the same problem. I work in Japan and travel a lot for research, and yeah, for this I normally use compensation. And for this, my first question would be, what is the relation to the foundation to Terrapass? Because it's a sponsor for Wikimedia conference. Is there a special relation?
Correct. And it's not in here. Do you want to take that, Erica? Or you're just waiting?
Terrapass was actually introduced to us by the Swedish affiliate that made a deal with them to provide carbon offsets for their scholarship. You know, anyone who's getting here through a scholarship will be offset by carbon credits from Terrapass. And when they told us that, we were like, okay, great. We can subsidize some of that as well, just to help offset the entire footprint of Wikimedia. So that was one of the goals of Wikimedia Sweden that we helped them with. But they set up that relationship.
Yeah, I find it really good. Terrapass. I normally use Atmosphere, and no, that would be also an organization like this. And I checked it. No? It's of course not Wikimedia, it's Wikipedia.
Right.
No? But I checked it on Wikipedia, and then I found Terrapass more in Atmosphere was in another category, more like a German category.
Okay.
Although they have English web pages, and Terrapass is I learned an American organization, So the thing is, how can we as a movement, and that is also relating to what I said to multilingua before, how can we as a movement leave our containers? Because the information we have as layers, they have to reach out. Then the people, if I would say, okay, I want to compensate, what can I do? Then I go, of course, to a wiki page. Normally the people do this. And then look what organizations are there. And then there should be also links, maybe how good are they, and maybe to this organization, and so on and so on. And unfortunately, the speaker before is not here anymore. She did this research about how good are the articles. And I think the scientific hard stuff, the sciences are more or less clear, but going to the social sciences and then to the impact, then it would be very, very difficult thing to do. And then go beyond this is very important.
And part of that is you hit it on, I think, a couple times, is that this is a community.
Yeah.
We need to talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
We need to talk about it with everyone. So it's not something that, again, me on behalf of the foundation today, I can't say, oh, you need to do this thing, right? I can just say, I know for what we do here, this is what we'd like to go ahead and do, and then me personally, what I would like to do. But yes, this has to be a conversation. It has to be something that people will be like, maybe, again, in Japan, maybe you guys have figured out something, oh, hey, there's this thing right here. Cool, great, let us all know, tell us.
That's also, I think, a matter of branding. And do you think, I heard that there's a discussion about branding. What's your personal opinion on this?
Personal opinion about branding between like TerraPass and Atmosphere?
No,
or
Wikipedia and Wikimedia, and how should it be?
That is totally not my call. We have some comms folks here that could talk more about that one. I don't know if you guys want to do a correct response, or we can talk afterward.
You mean on the branding?
Branding side,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
we can.
yeah,
do
I
that.
think we take that for
Okay.
later. Everybody's here to listen to sustainability.
Cool.
Right.
So I
You can
have,
come and talk to us after.
Timo, and then, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, you, and then Alex. So Timo first.
Yeah, I just wanted to reply with regards to train versus air travel. So I know that the travel team does support use of trains in this way. It's not their default offer, but I've made several trips. That basically whenever an event, so I work in London. Whenever there's an event anywhere in the UK, Netherlands, Germany, anywhere in Western Europe pretty much, I go by train. In the case of Stockholm, I didn't. It's just a little bit too long, but I usually play for myself. If it's less than 3 times as long, I'll still do it. And our traffic department will then reverse it just the same. So that is something that is an option, but it is not.
So I have 2 questions. Sorry, I wasn't right at the beginning, so maybe you talk about this. It's like, first, the question is, are you also counting the externalities, like the things that you hire as third-party services or contractors inside that report? And the second question is like, is there any plan for the foundation to actually try to raise awareness between other partners inside the movement, like say the governments, and make joint efforts maybe to like bring conferences together and stuff?
So as far as about all the external type stuff, I do know that there was a very small amount of it, but not the way I think that you're thinking of as far as third-party services and stuff like that. That wasn't part of this particular report. And as far as getting it to the other projects and such like this, again, this report is kind of our first step, maybe the second step, into figuring out what our baseline is right now, what can we do as a foundation to make things better, and then hopefully be able to say, you know what, here, this is what we found, this is what's working for us, this is what is not working for us, this might be something that you as a project might want to go ahead and take on, or not, but at this point, we're so early in the process at this point, I don't really have an answer for you yet.
Yeah, just to clarify my comment regarding air travel, I did not suggest we need to have a boat between the US and Europe, but rather when it's within a continent. And I think that it's highly plausible within all the European countries. Like if 15-year-old activists like Greta Thunberg can do it by train, then surely professional foundations should be able to do it as well. But yeah, and carbon offsetting has a lot of problems as well. It's better than nothing, but we can't just carbon offset and then say that, oh, now it solves the solution. Now we can go by air how much we want. But yeah, so 2 points. The first question, have you thought about whether we should like advocate externally regarding environmental issues, just like we do, for example, in regarding copyright or freedom of expression? Because of course there will be no free knowledge on a dead planet. Or do we already do that in some way? Do we support the climate strikers or whatever? And second, one thing you didn't touch on is the role of meat, because I saw that there is a lot of meat being eaten here, and I mean, at the very least, we should have vegetarian as the standard option and meat as an alternative. But I think that why should we use the foundation's money to have any kind of meat, since it's so bad for the environment?
I understand. That wasn't part of the report. So, I don't have an answer for you on that one.
But there's parts as recommendations, so not necessarily on meat, but there's parts of recommendations that we bring to event organizers, and so we can discuss if this is a recommendation that makes sense for us to bring to event organizers.
I think we talked more about having the food that's left over, and you know, making sure that someone eats it rather than necessarily meat versus vegetarian. At least that's what in the back of my mind I remember. So.
Can I respond to that as a regular Wikimedia attendee and former organizer? So, in the last few years, that in the Wikimedia movement, there has been a big shift from having one big Wikimania to having topical local conferences all over the year, all around the world, and the purpose of that is to allow Wikimedians to go to in-person meetings, but travel as little as possible. The second thing I wanted to say about travel is that there seems to be this myth that moving to a fossil fuel powered boat is somehow better than taking a plane, when in fact the reverse is true. As long as you are, as long as it's fossil fuel powered, the carbon footprint of the journey scales with distance and with time. Therefore, if you move from flying to taking a fossil fuel powered boat, you actually increase your carbon footprint. The only place where switching to service travel can save you ecological footprint is if you are in, for example, Central Europe, where the railway network is primarily nuclear and sustainable power run. So we need to debunk this myth. Switching to land travel does not necessarily reduce your carbon footprint. And the third thing about meat is, Jan can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's the first Wikimania where vegetarian is default and meat is the option, compared to previous Wikimanias where meat is the default and vegetarian is the option.
You're correct, and there's also no red meat at all at this conference. So there's only turkey and chicken.
All right, so all you then. So I'm just going to go from the top down. The gentleman with the glasses. Yep, you.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Not you, Alex. I was talking about the other gentleman with the glasses.
Yeah. So I know this has been kind of a slow process and stuff, but I'm wondering how our looking for green energy credits and offsets, how well that conversation has gone so far within the foundation, and is there a willingness amongst leadership to spend money on that? Because I know that it is an additional cost.
I can answer that a little bit. We haven't talked very deeply about it, and I know that carbon credits are controversial, and so is everybody else on the CP. It's not something we can commit to lightly. We have to do more research, and you know, just like we want to hold ourselves accountable for the work that we're doing, we want to make sure that if we go that direction, that we find accountability behind that as well. I mean, clearly it's not an ideal way to go. We would much rather find easy solutions to getting direct alternative energy to our data centers, for instance, but there are no easy solutions. These are very expensive solutions for us. And then so it puts us in a position of weighing how we spend our donor money, because our donor money is given to us to pursue the mission of spreading free knowledge around the world. Now, this is a polarity that we need to find balance in, because at the same time, we do need to be responsible environmentally in pursuing that mission. And if carbon credits provides us a compromise in the meantime, while we continue to work, for instance, with our data centers, one of which is actually a data center, Equinix in Virginia, is already working with lots of government agencies trying to improve the availability of alternative energy. They've even signed up for the same UN Sustainable Development projects that we're looking at here at Wikimedia. There are other people in this ecosystem that are also responsible for increasing the sustainability, reducing these footprints. It's not all on us. So I hope not to lean too deeply into carbon credits if we can help it. So that's my opinion and the opinion of the CP.
As a follow-on to that too, has the endowment board looked at our investments in light of the carbon impact of them?
So again, this report specifically didn't go into that.
Speaking about content, and we are increasing our carbon footprint, of course, and we are also encouraging our contributors to contribute more and more audiovisual content, which is backup-wise and screen-wise maybe a big impact factor. How are we going to maybe setting the default to low playback quality instead of HD, for example, or the algorithms for compressing video streams, for example. Are we going into this in any way?
That would be a great thing for you to put up on the Wikimedia as a suggestion. That would be fantastic, yeah.
I think there's a lot of ways that we
Yes.
could look at the way our code works in our computers to reduce processing, but that's not something we both have.
I believe, this me speaking as an environmental scientist, I think a lot of the ecological footprint of reading content comes from just the hardware on which you view it. And therefore, if by providing higher resolution content, we actually let the reader get the information in a shorter period of computer usage time, we may save carbon footprint overall despite increasing the amounts of data that needs to go through. So we need to think about that carefully.
I just had a comment about that branding that you mentioned earlier. Maybe you were thinking, when you talk about branding, maybe this environmental work that you're doing is maybe not well known in the public, and if you somehow slip it in a little bit more into your outreach, it could help. Also, I think a lot of young people, and me included, we don't realize how much energy is actually used by live streaming stuff and by data centers. We all think, oh, that's not much energy, but it's also a fair bit, so we can really help educate the public that it's to be taken seriously.
Yeah, and that's a great idea, right? It's because there are so many people that just take videos with their phone and it goes through, Facebook or whatever it does, and they don't think about, oh, it's a cool video. That's what they think about, right? They don't think about what the servers are that actually hold it, the streaming services, are they fast enough, are they whatever, right? That doesn't go through people's heads. But yeah, there is a cost for that as well. I think there's someone else. Yeah. Cool. Any other comments, questions?
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.